All right. Good morning, guys. Before we get going, let me know if my audio's okay. We've got a good group of people in the chat already, so welcome. This was a very last minute stream, and the reason why I opted to do this is mostly because I have a presentation I'm giving tomorrow and had to do a dry run of a presentation deck. And I thought, you know what? It might be fun to do this live. That way I can find any issues in the presentation deck. So let's jump right into it. I'll wait another couple seconds here to make sure the audio is good before I start going. A little bit light on traffic today, just 5 or so users, but maybe it'll pick up. It's still kind of early for most of us. Okay, let's go ahead and jump directly into this demo. So EmComm Tools Community, what is it? So for those of you who are new, I do many things on my channel, mostly focused on off-grid communication, and I have been very much focused on that activity over the last 5 years, and there has been an evolution of the gear, the techniques, how I execute and all that. And part of that work is the software side. And I always found that while digital modes in amateur radio are very powerful, they're also very difficult to get into. So I have developed this thing called EmComm Tools Community. It is a full operating system that's built on Linux, but don't get focused on that for right now. But let's talk about what it is at the highest level. Let's see here. All right. So number one, it's an off-grid computing platform. So one of the design goals of this modified version of the Ubuntu operating system is to never connect it to the internet. And this is something that's becoming very rare in 2025. I don't know, smash the thumbs up button if you guys are annoyed with the amount of internet connected devices. We went to a pet store the other day and we were told that we couldn't use our coupons anymore until we downloaded and installed their app. Well, I told them I'm on a flip phone. So I'm taking a very different approach than just about every software developer out there. My goal is I want it to be off grid. And by off grid, that means you never, ever have to connect it to the internet. Ooh, we got someone from over the pond here. Greetings from the UK. Thank you. All right, so off-grid first. Number two, offline design. Again, everything that I've done with this platform is this idea of being fully offline. In fact, I encourage people never to even turn on the wireless connectivity on the platform. And I don't, and it really allows me and forces me to think about what's the offline data that I need, what are the offline map capabilities. All of that has gone into this platform. Guys, I'll try to answer questions. Probably I'll take a pause between slides, but I won't be able to get to everything, but I will read them and do appreciate the engagement. Turnkey. The other thing about our design goal with EmComm Tools is that I want it to be a turnkey solution. And when I got into this, it was incredibly difficult with all these barriers to entry on what software do I need to install? Once I install it, how do I configure it? And the issue gets compounded as you're working with multiple different pieces of the software. The other design goal is easy to use. I don't want to have to require the user to have an advanced degree, a postgraduate degree, for example. And while I'm blessed that there is a lot of work done on the software side by the amateur radio community, the big challenge is that a lot of it was developed in the late 90s, early 2000s when computing was very different and it was menu and configuration paralysis where there was so much you just couldn't take it. So I wanted to make this thing as simple and easy to use since this is designed to be used in an emergency or when there's a grid down scenario. Field expedient. You guys have seen the operations I've been doing now for the last 5 years. I operate in a very hostile, austere environment in the Sonoran Desert. I routinely like to operate. In fact, my preferred operating window is in our summer months. So that is uh, August, September, that time frame, and we usually have triple digits, so about 114 degrees, if not up to 118 degrees, with ground temps, north of like 160 or whatever. So I want to deploy my gear quickly, whether that's the radio, the antenna system, the shelter system, make my contact and break down. And I need software that I'm using to also be in alignment with that philosophy. Obviously, it's a communications platform because it does allow you to do all of the digital data modes. And then in the last few releases, I've been incorporating offline mapping and offline navigation. In fact, the prior releases, R3 and R4, had that, and just did a trip from where I'm in North Phoenix, Arizona, to New Mexico to Southeast Arizona, a little town called Portal, and I used my platform 100% offline maps with offline turn-by-turn direction. So it's a bit like jumping into a time machine. And if there's only one thing you get out of this talk is that EmComm Tools, while it is built on top of Linux, it's an appliance. Think of Linux being an implementation detail. So if you come from the Windows world, the best way that I recommend people get into this is get yourself an older 10-year-old laptop that's 64-bit with 256 gig hard drive, 8 gigs of RAM, and spend a weekend to build the image, install it, but don't get too hung up on the fact that it's using a different operating system. It's using Linux, and you'll see why it's important. But think appliance. This is for the appliance operator. It's not for the the super ham nerd out there that wants to have every knob and dial. If I do my job correctly, I wanted the end goal when I'm done with this. We're in the R5 release. By the time I get to R10, which should be about 18 months out from now, I want my wife to be able to take a one-page IKEA manual, take a Manpack radio like this guy right here, connect the single cable here, toss up the antenna, and then connect it to EmComm Tools and be able to send an email, send an HF message over the air, and that is it, and then break down. So that's the goal. What I'm working on is not for everybody. Really quickly, before we move on to the next slide, let's see. This one looks good. Enshittification is the inevitable outcome of non-open source IoT products. It's the inevitable outcome of shareholder value and infinite growth. Yeah, so this project is very different. All the code is open source. It's a less traditional open source project, mostly due to my limited time for communication overhead, but everything is completely open and in the clear. This is the last question I'm going to take from this section, then we'll move on. This is from Doug. Gaston, side question. Have you ever thought of BMAX Silver Plus tier to offer limited support? Unfortunately, Doug, I have thought about it. There's just no way for me to offer level support. My time is incredibly tight. In fact, I haven't been able to produce videos just working on this, and I can't do the support. The way that I typically try to do the software is to stick to the reference hardware. The live streams are great. We do something called the TTP Nerd Hour on the Buy Me a Coffee side, where we do deep dives and all of this stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, I just don't. I'm a one-man show. I'm developing more soft goods. I'm starting a training company, the videos. So I'm only able to do 2 days of research and development for EmComm Tools, but I do my best to make sure there's very little or no bugs whatsoever. Okay, let's go off into the next slide. Oh, it's free. If you take the time to go to community.emcommtools.com, which will be updated for the Thanksgiving Day release, if you just sit down and follow the instructions and build it, you have yourself a free off-grid, offline, turnkey communications platform with other off-grid fun stuff. So about me, my name is Gaston. Go by the Tech Prepper on YouTube. 90s tech nerd. Grew up in the early 80s to late 90s. And that is a lot of what is influencing the design of what I'm working on. Again, I grew up with payphones, pagers came a little bit later, using the phone book, calling uh, the uh, the theaters to find which listings were going on there. In fact, when I went to college, I was sent a catalog this thick and had to do a touch tone DTMF dialing to register for all my classes. So a lot of that is you'll see it in the underpinnings of of how I approach software. I don't want it to be that difficult, but I have an appreciation for a time where we weren't as connected with the internet. Backcountry adventure. Most of my field work over the last 4 years, 5 years, has taken place in the Tonto National Forest. Excuse me for 1 second. And then I like to call myself a practical prepper. A big distinction between doomsday prepper. I like everything. I think if you're able to get yourself in a situation where you're starting out and you can self sustain for 3 days, then work up to 3 weeks, then 3 months, and you have all of your family and community's needs met, that's kind of where I'm in. And it covers everything from ability to procure water, filter water, or procure food, filter water, take care of your own medical, personal security, communications. So I don't go crazy with the backhoe bearing a Connex box in the back, although that could be fun. So practical prepper, and it also reflects in the software as well, that everything I'm doing, I do it through a practical, real world scenario. I don't want to go on too many tangents here, but yeah, I had for a second here, I was evaluating uh, this BTEC, or sorry, not BTEC, Baofeng Delta Mike 32 UV. And I had this guy comment saying, oh, it's full of Chinese spyware. And I said, hey, my man, you obviously don't know how physics works. This is a VHF UHF radio, which is limited to line of sight. Most people have a hard enough time using these things to make the context they want 1, 2, 3 miles out. If it's not connected to the internet, this is not a satellite device, so there's no way in hell anything will be going out into ether. If it's not connected to your phone, there's no internet link. So some Chinese spy agent is going to have to literally be within a couple mile range and then use a backdoor on the encrypted channel to figure that out. So I try to distance myself from the crazy preppers out there because that's the kind of rhetoric that they're about and I don't believe in. Let's see here. Oh, someone is asking a question already about the Raspberry Pi. Is this something that will be able to run on a Raspberry Pi? No, the answer is no. The initial V1 version did. You'll see pictures of that. But right now, it's only x86 hardware, 64-bit architecture, and it's a platform, and the platform of choice is 64-bit equipment, preferably ruggedized equipment. So the Raspberry Pi for me has failed, and I went through 5 Raspberry Pis the first 2 summers I was out here operating at 118 degrees and realized that it was not the platform. So a lot of what you're going to see in this talk is very opinionated, but it's all done through very practical, real world experiences. And it's probably not for everybody, but I'm really happy on some of the design decisions. I'm really big into emergency communications. I'm not really much in the way of a traditional amateur radio operator. In fact, I came into this very late in life, 5 years ago. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. I'm a consummate optimizer. If you guys have been following the channel, you can see that there's been a very deliberate progression of all of the gear, all of the radio systems, all of the antenna systems, all of the techniques, all of the software. Again, we're talking about EmComm Tools R5 or Release 5. There was a Release 1, which ran on a Pi that was shown early on. It was never released. It was more of a prototype. R2 was what I thought would be a commercial release. That was never released either, but I am drawing on that for a lot of what you're seeing today. And then R3, R4, and R5 were, R3 was released Thanksgiving of last year. R4 was released on April Fool's, and then R5 is going to be released again this Thanksgiving. Okay. I call my ham date of birth May 5th, 2020. We moved to this property during COVID, right in the middle of or right at the beginning of the lockdown of the pandemic. Was licensed in 2017. Spent a month studying for my tech license. Bought myself a Baofeng UV5R, and nobody would talk to me on the repeaters. I'm actually kind of hoping that someone at the Hamfest calls out the fact that I still routinely talk about Baofengs, because I'm really going to make the point that that type of attitude is the exact opposite of what needs to be happening to get people into the hobby. But anyways, long story short, I put it on hold. We moved to this property during the pandemic. They weren't sure how to get our belongings to us, so we were in this house for 3 days with essentially a mattress from the RV and a couple of lawn chairs. And I decided to pull out the old Baofeng and keyed up, got on the air, and I made my first contact with Mike WB4 ZKA, and I was hooked. And since then, I filmed every single thing on the channel, along with the evolution of the EmComm Tools platform. And then I have a little channel called The Tech Prepper right here on YouTube. Let's see here. Before I move on to the next slide, it looks like there might be a comment from John that looks interesting. That's why I haven't pulled the trigger on my ham license. Yeah, I hear you, brother. I don't know anyone to talk to, and the hams I do hear in my AO, area of operation, come across as crusty gatekeepers laughing out loud. So I prefer listening only. Yeah, don't let that dissuade you from getting on. I know there's a lot of that going on. In fact, I still see it day to day. I wish I had more advice for you. I think it just is going to take more maybe YouTubers, or honestly for that generation to move on. Most of them that are in that salty bunch, not to put a label on things, tend to be 60s, 70s, 80s. And I think a lot of reform is actually needed, especially with the test. I think the test right now is showing its age. I think CW needs to go away. I think there should be more focus on digital. A lot of the electrical pieces need to go away. People are not building their own radios. So that all needs to change. I've never really tried to reach out too much to the ARRL because I like to drop the F-bomb. I don't like to, but I will drop the F-bomb every once in a while. I do get passionate, and I feel like I would be the wrong poster child for them. But I'll do my part to at least try to help people get into the hobby. All right. Former technology consultant. I did this for 22 years. Recently left corporate America 2.5 months ago. So thank you so much, guys. I mean, really, it's this community, but the Buy Me a Coffee community has been outstanding. Without them, I could not do this. In fact, without their support, I may have to go back into that world 6 months from now, and don't want to. But it's interesting in terms of the EmComm tools development. My background was in enterprise search, enterprise web content management. So just about any website that you've seen that has a search bar, even sites that don't, I've built solutions for that in the automotive space, the entertainment space, and for very large customers. And it influenced the work that I'm doing on EmComm tools, because there was an big automotive company that I worked with about 10 years ago. And they had a inventory system that had all their vehicles in one database. They had all of their product information, all of their trim model information in another system. And they had all of these data silos everywhere. And their website was completely fragmented. And a customer doesn't care. Customer wants to go to the site. They want to be geodetected. They want to see all of the inventory in their area. They want to be able to filter by price point, by trim model, by engine type, all that stuff. And then they may want to see, the documentation on the freaking check engine light is on, and they all want it in one place. So my job was always to aggregate all of that information, link it together, and then display it in a way that was very intuitive and frictionless, easy to use, and turnkey. So yeah, my software is powering a large portion of some big companies out there, and I rebuilt a lot of that with EmComm tools. It was I thought, you know what, the amateur radio space has the same problems of fragmentation. Okay, so I realized early on, this was 5 years ago, that digital data modes. So not using voice were extremely powerful. So on VHF, UHF, you have something called packet radio. The big one is APRS. Essentially, it allows you to have your radio transmit in conjunction with a GPS unit that's on your phone, for example, your geo coordinates, so other people can see you on a map. It has the ability to do text messaging over the air. It has the ability for you to drop pins that you could see on a map. It has the ability to interoperate with the internet in some cases to allow you to do text messaging over your radio, and then another station puts it on the internet. It has the ability to do email, lots of applications. So I went through that whole process with the Baofeng, how to connect it to the device that had to attach either to my phone or to my radio, and then what I'll call all of the ham radio nerd stuff, all of those little configurations, and it was a nightmare. So I did the series on why the F are digital modes so difficult, and I walked through all of those. In this case, it looks like it was the Baofeng plus the Digirig plus Linux. So if you switch out the radio, switch out the Linux for Windows or Mac OS, or you switch out the Digirig for something else, it gets horribly, horribly complex. And I wanted to solve that problem. So that's why. So Bill says, oh, you got the acronym, buddy, wrong. It's EmComm Tools is ETC, Echo Tango Charlie, ETC, but that's close enough. The ETC build was incredibly easy, mostly cut and paste, so easy even I can do it. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, it's a little bit of a process to build it. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then we've got LW of Jax. Thank you for this work. I've spent my life in IT. Oh, cheers, buddy. The challenge with this stuff isn't me figuring it out. It's getting intuitive enough for people I need to talk to. Exactly right. Yeah, like I said, the litmus test for when I'm done with this is when my wife, who has no interest in radio technology, she just wants to power it on. And if I can cater to that iPhone grandmother market, that really is my goal. All right. So I did that series, and I kind of shared all the struggles while I was learning it. I had a tech background. I am a college dropout, and I had a hard time with it. I couldn't figure out the nomenclature, like what we called things in amateur radio. I couldn't figure out which interface. I couldn't figure out which radio, sound settings, the whole shebang. Just a nightmare. So once I figured out how to do all that stuff, I realized that I can make this better. So a little bit of history. So I got on the air, what was it, in May of 2020. So this was about a month and a half later. And I went to do ARRL field day. I was still a technician. And this is how I operated. I had my transceiver here is the Yaesu FT818. It was on top of an aluminum folding table that I hiked to the top of a ruin that we have out here, about 3.5 miles out and about, 1,200 feet of gain. On top of it, I have the digital mode interface that was popular at this time 5 years ago called the Signal Link USB. It took me weeks to figure out how to get this to work. So we've got all of these knobs and dials here. I had it going into a Raspberry Pi off to the left. Had power for everything, and then I was using a tablet here. This was, I think, an iPad 2, which I still have, the small guy, and was doing a virtual connection into the wireless on the Raspberry Pi and doing FT8. I made my first FT8 contact on 10 meters back then as a tech, but this was how I started. And even to do this, it took me 2 months to figure out just how to do FT8 on the 10-meter band. And again, you can see here that the gear is not conducive. The setup and deployment for this setup, I don't know, it would take me about half an hour between setting up the antenna, maybe 45 minutes, setting up the antenna, pulling that stuff out of dry bags. So a little bit later, I finally did my upgrade from technician to general, which put me on HF. And I wanted to send email over radio. There's something called WinLink, and it allows us to send email just using your radio on VHF, UHF, on HF, using a variety of modes. In this case, I was using the FT891, which is a 100-watt transceiver. I was still using the folding table. For power, I was using the buddy pole. You can still see that there was, I think, a Raspberry Pi 3 at this time sitting on top with that signal link. Same machine here. For me to get on WinLink, it took me, I think, about 2 months to figure out the association for audio levels, and again, just knobs, dials galore, just way too much nerd stuff coming from a technical background. So later that year, to solve one problem, someone reached out to me from Tennessee, a little company called Armorlock, and he says, "Hey man, this is who I am. I think I can help you make your," and this is where I heard the term field expedient for the very first time. He says to me, "I think I can help you so you're not pulling your radios out of dry bags and then attaching batteries." And at that time, he had this thing called the Armorlock TPA pack frames. I still run this on every single piece of kit. And the beauty of this is that it allowed me to simplify the cable management for like the coaxial connection here, simplify the power connection. And I was like, wow, this is great. And it really allowed me also to have more confidence in my gear out in the field. So the next evolution of this was a bit later, and I started to strap things onto the frame itself. So here you can see I've got the power pole distribution integrated. I've got now I'm using the DigiRig Mobile, which is a smaller version of the digital interface connected. So I went from this giant box, the Signal Link USB, right? And it was now replaced just a couple years later with this little tiny domino-sized device here that was responsible for taking the audio and the input, or the audio in and out of the radio, as well as pushing the push-to-talk button in this little package with this cable. So still not perfect, but we're starting to get to a smaller package. Then I had discovered these Panasonic Tough Pads. This was the CF20. And it now realized that, hey, I don't need to have a tablet that connects into a Raspberry Pi. I can have a fully ruggedized platform for compute that is slim, can get rained on. I could do touch with it. So together we're starting to get closer. And this was really what set off the development for me on EmComm tools. Let's see. Someone says here, looks like a possible typo on Armorlock. Uh-oh. Thank you for catching that. Let's see. Oh, wow. Look at that. Thank you. Thank you. This is exactly right, Arma. Oh, Arma. Oh, it looks funny. Armorlock. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect catch. Okay, that's been there since the last time I gave this talk. Okay. So that's where I was going. Again, all of this was influencing. Actually, you know what? If you send me your amateur radio call sign, I'll send you a TTP patch. So go to info@thetechprepper.com, put your YouTube handle there, and shoot me an email, and I'll arrange to send you a patch. Thank you for catching that typo. Timothy Jacob says, what's on top of the radio? Yeah, so this is, I'm not using it so much these days anymore. This is called the Buddy Pole Power Mini. And what it is a solar charge controller. So a lot of the work I do in the field has to do around sustainability. And I think Julian, Oscar Hotel 8 Sierra Tango November, I think that's his call sign. He really liked these a few years back. I don't know if he's still using them, but it was a nice solution. It allows you to plug in, and then you can have a couple of loads. So this one here's load 1, load 2. Load 1 is connected to the power coming out of the radio, and then there's a connection at the top here for the battery. So it gives you a way to power the radio, power a USB 5-volt device, as well as have 2 inputs, as well as do some charging. So really kind of cool. I don't know if there's anything better. I've got the Buddy Pole, the original one here, as well as the second generation, and they've been working great for years. But I don't keep them in the bag anymore. I keep them in a separate system these days. Great question. Okay, so this ultimately led to, okay, I need a place to put this. So I came up with this design taking off the shelf uh, bags out there. So this was my first run at doing a man pack bag over here on the left. I took the Helicon Tech E&E pouch. I had a neighbor chop the top of the cap off because I couldn't clear the frame here. I got this 511 6x6 admin pouch, put the battery in there, and now all I had to do was turn on the radio and connect this USB cable. So we're getting closer. And what I needed to happen next was get the platform for my digital comms to get in sync. So again, I don't want this to be long-winded, but I think the story of how I got here influences why everything is this way. So again, we're now at Manpack version 1 in 2022. And then we're also at EmComm Tools version 2, which is running on an x86 computer. It's actually pretty similar to what we have today. But that was mostly a whole bunch of just crazy prototypes I would bang out in a weekend and was never for public consumption. So it was never released. I often call it the commercial version because it did have some encryption in there as well, which will be coming in later versions. Okay, so then in 23, I finally came up with this design. I got into the bag business, which I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Never really made any money on these bags. I did break even, but I came up with a full man pack design that had pass-through ports for power and cable management. It accommodated the battery inside the pouch, had room for the hand mic. So you had this nice little grab handle here. And I've been operating this way ever since. There's no folding tables anymore. In fact, I mean, the new version of the bag, which I'm all sold out of, now is in, this was a limited run I did in multicam, and it's the same setup, same radio. In fact, these are the original frames, and I just love running everything this way. Got the mounting hardware for USB interface. So as we'll see in a second when we do the demo, all I have to do is turn on power, connect the antenna to the BNC port here. And then in the pouch here, I've got just the USB-C or the USB-C cable. And I got this right angle adapter. And all I have to do is plug it into the computer. In fact, if you want to see this real quick, we're going to jump something in the demo. So literally powered it on. Imagine I had connected a antenna here. All I have to do, let's switch back over here to screen sharing. So we're going to put the cart in front of the horse here. So I'm going to launch something called ET Radio. We're kind of skipping ahead here. And part of what EmComm Tools does is plug and play. So I will scroll down to FT 818 ND with the digirig. Okay. It will output all the settings that the user needs. So you don't have to figure out this nerd stuff yourself. It says, okay, menu 7, antenna rear. Menu 14, cat rate is 38,400. If you guys have ever battled with how to make your radio talk to your computer, let me know in the comments here. But I put everything included here, right down to adjustments for setting the mode into Digi when you're in HF, as well as the RF gain when you're in HF, to what you need to do when you're in VHF packets. So very easy for the field operator. We're going to launch a little program here called Conky. And what you're going to see on the right-hand side here is it says cat control not connected, audio not connected. We're going to take this cable. This is where the plug and play comes in. We'll talk about this in a second. Within 10 seconds, if it works, we'll see that the cat control will go to connected and the audio will be detected. So we are connected, digirig mobile. And now, again, no nerd configuration. I can launch JSA Call, which is one of many applications, and it will reconfigure the entire software suite on the fly. Cat control works out of the box. If I had an antenna connected, we would see messages coming through here, call sign set, grid square set. You just start operating. You do have to learn the software, but you do not have to go into settings. And you don't have to figure out what all of this ham nerd stuff means. You don't have to go into radio and figure out which rig to pick or cat control. The software takes care of everything for you. So we did put the cart in front of the horse on that one, but since I had the man pack out, that is what I was shooting for in terms of simplicity. Okay, so let me kill and then when you're done, I just unplug the cable, power it off, take down the antenna, put the flat back on, stick in the pack, and we're done. And that's exactly my goal, is the field expedient. So not only does the gear have to be high speed, not that I don't have any military background, but I like high speed as in it's hot as balls out there, pardon my French. It's 118 degrees. I need to set up my shelter. I just want to drop my pack, throw out my antenna, and get on the air and let my wife know, hey, I made it to camp, and then break down everything. That's the motivation by every design decision that goes into the software as well. Let's see. Aaron, Kilo Bravo 9, Mike Tango Delta says, that's a great feature. Not everyone has the same radios. Yeah, so I'll show you guys how I do that. So I built an abstraction layer. So I tried to, there are these layers between the radio and the computer that normalize how we do audio and how I do audio in EmComm tools, how I do cat control. And again, it's a very opinionated move, and we'll see in a second. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad you appreciate it. So again, my goal is zero configuration. You only need 2 pieces of information. The very first time you install EmComm tools and boot into it, you have to put in your amateur radio call sign, and optionally you put in your grid square. That is it. If you have one of the supported radios and hardware, it really is as simple as I just showed you. So you set your call sign with a little application called ET User. So it'll ask for call sign, grid square, and then optionally a WinLink password, and that's it. This application, as you saw, is a text-based application that runs on the command line. In R6, the next release, it's going to be a fully graphical touch for doing those settings. Then you select your radio with ET Radio. That was the application I just showed you in that little demo. Again, that is going to be replaced in the next major release. The April Fool's release will be R6. We'll have, or maybe sooner, we'll have a graphical application that you can just launch with your finger and select your radio. Does the same thing. And then the last one is this thing called ET Mode. You notice that for JS8 call, there was no mode selector. I've already, for the graphical applications that are out there, there's a level of indirection. It technically is a mode, same thing with FL Digi, but there's other modes that you can run to do WinLink, APRS. You can even run your own bulletin board server. Oh, Gene. Gene is a tremendous supporter. Thank you, Gene. Welcome from Texas. Your guys are helping me out with this, with dry run. Okay, so that's it. So zero configuration, what I'll call plug and play, and just 3 steps from first boot. In fact, I do this so often because I do lots of builds of EmComm tools. The system that we're going to connect to in a little bit is a brand new install, and I just went through the ET User process. Takes 30 seconds, and you're up and running as long as you have the supported gear. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all the features that were in R3 and then R4. Let me think if I can think of it. So R3, R4, right now that's out there. We had full plug and play support. That was already part of the platform. That was the big thing. Lots of radio supported. Support for APRS, a packet mode called Chatterbox for doing peer-to-peer chat with cryptographically signed call signs. So there was no encryption, but you could use private key, public key cryptography to sign your call sign so that you knew the other person was who you were talking to. There was support for a bulletin board server, the ability to connect to a bulletin board server. I think I mentioned APRS, WinLink on Packet, VARA, and RDOP. Offline mapping tool called Navit that geodetects you and does offline mapping. But R5, what we're going to talk about today, and shoot, we're 40 minutes into this. Big thing, offline geo API. So I use my background in the software engineering space and how I architected things for like the automotive entertainment industry, biotech industry, those systems. So there's an offline program that you never see. It runs as a service. The user never sees it. And it's able to, right now, just in the US, but I'm expanding to other markets, you can give it a call sign. And without the internet, it looks up a very small search index and returns to you a geocoded information about that station, first name, state, city, zip code, and then they're geodetected down to the zip code. You'll see that demo shortly. So it does a bunch of these things. So it does calculations for how far you are from somebody else. Oh, offline mapping. This was the big one for R5. So right now, the offline maps are supported only in the US and Canada. I'm going to see if I can get the UK done next before this release goes out, and Australia. So you'll see a lot of the applications that are coming are using this new offline mapping engine. So zero connection to the internet required. There's a new application that I'll show you called ET Aircraft. It's an offline aircraft tracking software that uses the map, and all you have to do is connect something like this SDR, and over radio, it picks up all the planes. And the reason why I built this, well, it may not seem like an EmComm mode. Two stories here. The real reason I needed it was that I'm building applications that are easy to use. And I wanted to make sure that when I'm taking advantage of offline maps, that I can reuse it across multiple offline applications that I write. And I needed the ability to track a lot of different things happening on the map. So aircraft seemed like a really good choice. I didn't have to play with somebody else. I didn't have to have someone on the other end to play radio with. I could just plug in this $30 SDR with USB and get it. So the aircraft tracking software is geared around testing that, and it turned out to be popular. The other thing is I like to go shooting, and I've got the National Forest behind me. And about a year ago, I went back there with a binary trigger, which is allowed here. So when you pull the trigger, one round goes off. When you release, another one goes out. If you do that fast enough, it sounds like you're shooting fully automatic. Well, I was 2 miles out there. Within the first mag dump, an aircraft, Phoenix PD, it turns out, was dispatched out of Happy Valley and pretty much went directly north to my position. About 5 minutes later, I reloaded, did another quick magazine dump. They did almost a perfect bearing to my location. And then I did a third one, and they came right on top of me and did the circle. I showed the flight path after I did that, and it was scary. So I wanted to have some visibility into things like that in the future. So, but it looks like this is a super chat? Oh, very cool. This is my third one. So ID Sarah's, thank you so much. It looks like that's 10 pounds. Very cool. Let me know if you have a question. I'd be happy to answer it. And then Aaron says, if you're out in the woods with no cell service, you can still communicate. Yep, exactly the point. All right. So let's get back to the presentation. Offline vocab. Now this one is the crown jewel. This is the one that I wanted. So this week was a bad week because of the solar storms that were going on and very disruptive of HF or high frequency radio. So this is one of those areas that is incredibly over the top high nerd stuff. I did a series that I encourage you guys to Google and share called No Random Contacts, in which, in fact, I wish I had the the link. And in No Random Contacts, my goal with that 7-part series on YouTube was to try to establish targeted contacts at what I call concentric rings of communication. And these are the questions everybody has. How do I communicate, and with what radio service and with which tools and antennas in my community, my neighborhood? All right, that was one video. Then, how do I communicate within my city? How do I communicate within my county? How do I communicate within my state? How do I communicate with my region, across the US, and then across the globe? And in that series, I did what I call targeted contacts or no random contacts across all of those. So if you ever have anybody that says, I don't know what's possible in radio, I highly encourage you. And I wish I had got the playlist. If any of my Buy Me a Coffee members can do me a favor and figure out how to find the No Random Contacts playlist, please put that in the live chat here, because I really did enjoy that series. And there was a point in which I got into HF communication and planning those state level, region level, US level contacts required some prediction software, which I'll get into in just a second. And so that's the VOACAP tool, the Voice of America Capture Analysis Program, is a tool that has been developed over 70, 80 years that allows you to take one point on the world and another point in the world, and you give it your antenna system, how much power and mode, and it'll tell you when you can presumably make that contact. We got another super chat. Thank you, Bobby. This is amazing. I've never got so many before. Thanks for what you do for all of us. Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love this stuff. And like I said, I don't know if quitting my day job was the right thing for retirement and savings. It's not. But right now I'm having a blast, and as much as I can get out there, it's great. I'm going to do a quick shameless plug. If you guys did watch that No Random Contacts series and did like it, I did do some mugs called No Random Contacts. I'll put a link to the shop below down there. And it's one of those things, if you guys have ever done targeted contacts and want to support what I'm doing, check out that No Random Contacts mug. It kind of poke fun at the amateur radios that operators that do DX and just want to randomly talk to people. My goal was to do all of this and do targeted communication. Okay. Not sure what that comment was about. Wasn't for me. But long story short, this VOACAP is a tool that was developed for decades, even pre-microprocessor, and they captured all kinds of data points on the 11-year solar cycle and all of the contacts that were made, and did very advanced modeling. So in the field, completely offline, I want to be able to do that. There's a fantastic tool called voacap.com/HF, and that developer has done amazing work. But the problem is that tool requires an internet connection. So I spent probably a month developing the simple application you're about to see for handling and answering that question. Not perfectly, but just to give you a broad framework of, hey, I want to talk to my buddy Jason KM4ACK 1,500 miles out in Tennessee. Can I do it with this power level on this mode? And if it can't figure it out, it tries to tell you when in the next 24-hour period you can do that. And my goal was to make it nerd free. All the nerd handles have been removed. Okay. Offline call sign lookup, that's also incorporated. I did add a few more radios, so I had support for the FX4CR, the TX500 MP, which I love, love, love. That's my new field radio. And then the Xiegu X6100. The X6200 did not make it for this release. It's going to come in R6. I had support for FL Digi as another turnkey mode for anybody who's ever done FL Digi. Let me know in the comments. But that thing has got settings like you would not believe. And right now it's 0 config. You don't have to do a dang thing about it. I did update the FCC dataset as of the 12th of this month. So if you received your amateur radio call sign and it was in the database before the 12th, You can be looked up. It doesn't bleed any details other than your first name, your state, your city, and your zip code. It doesn't include your address anywhere in the software. So it's not anonymous, but it gets people to the general area. And this is required for the prediction work I'm doing. Okay, so getting through, these were kind of fail-safe slides unless the demos go bad. This is that tool I was telling you about, ET Radio, where you select your radio. Right now it is text-based, but the next release, it'll be a graphical application. This is the shot where it shows you how to configure the radio. What I have personally done, every radio that's listed, I have personally used. I have personally modified the audio levels and have gone through all the settings. So one thing is important. When I define the radio configuration notes, the baseline is always a factory reset. That's the only way I can do this reliably. So if you ever have an issue, make a note of your settings, do a factory reset, and this list is the only list that's needed to get it to work with EmComm tools. Some radios are easier than others. In fact, the easiest radio is the EmComm IC705. There's only one setting required, and that setting is only required if you want the onboard GPS. This is the third step in that three-step process. So step one, again, to recap, is you enter in your call sign. Step two, you select your radio, plug in your radio. Step three is you select your mode. This was from the R4 release, so there aren't as many modes here. There are quite a few more modes in this release, including GSA call and FL-Digi. Here's a screenshot of APRS. For the APRS client, I use Yak, and when you select that client, everything is configured for you. The only thing you have to do, and I think the documentation talks about it, part of the process for installing EmComm tools is a section where you select which state in the US you want offline maps. And the first time you log in, you have to go to File, I think it's OpenStreetMaps, and import the map. It takes 20 minutes, but after that, you're able to use Yak. Now, there is for those of you guys that do use APRS, the other reason why I spent so much time in the offline mapping is that I'm going to be rewriting in a very simple modern way that's still offline APRS. It's going to take the same look and feel as the apps you're about to see, but it's going to be using Yak under the hood to do all of the heavy lifting. This is an example of WinLink. This is the ability to send WinLink over email. As I told you, the first time I got onto WinLink over HF, it took me 2 months. I did this with someone I was consulting with the other day. He sent me his laptop. I did an install for him of EmComm tools, shipped it back. He used his radio that was supported. We got on WinLink within 2 minutes. So that's really what I'm trying to get to. Right now, I would say the biggest challenge is on working with what I'll call this other software that I did not write. So Pout WinLink is actually pretty good. Yak is kind of difficult to use. But again, I've got a roadmap I'm going to show you where I'm going to be rewriting the graphical applications that will use these to make them less nerd-free. Another mode in EmComm tools is GSA call. Again, all you do is plug in your radio and you just click the icon like I showed you at the beginning here, and it configures everything. Again, you as the user needs to know how to use this tool, but you don't have to worry about all of the settings. This is that ET aircraft. In fact, I might want to pause here and do a demo. This is the new application, just a screenshot, but we'll do a live demo here in just a second. Here's an example of ET Predict. So what you're seeing here, there's going to be a little icon you can see here on the left, little genie coming out with a little ponytail with the radiating RF signals, and completely offline. It geodetected my location. I entered in KM4ACK. I get the offline call sign lookups. I get the distance calculation on the fly, and then I have the ability here to select the power and the mode. And then it spits out a now and later. So very much nerd-free. In fact, the power users are complaining that, hey, I want to be able to pick my antenna and I want to be able to see all of this. No. This is designed for me in a glance. Right now it's 1400 UTC. all right, if I want to talk to Jason, these are my 4 bands, these are the frequencies, and that's what you would expect based on power, output level, and mode. Before we get into the philosophy, I want to put the cart in front of the horse and do a demo. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this RTL SDR. So this is the station that is connected behind me. So stand by. And right now I've got the EmComm IC7200 plugged in. GPS is not connected, so it's going to fall back to the grid square I entered in ET user. Maybe that's worth a quick one. So I go to ET user. This is the first command you run, usually one time. You enter your call sign. Mine's already set to KT7RUN. You put in your grid square if you know it. If not, I would look it up because a lot of the geodetection without GPS uses this value. And then your willing password if you have one. If not, leave it blank. If you do and you don't want to override it, also just hit enter and you can just save that. Okay, so look at the bottom right-hand corner here. A colleague of mine actually contributed the bit that will show when you have a supported SDR. And right now I support the RTL SDR version 2, 3, 4. If there's a 5, I support it, as well as this one, which is the ADS-B Exchange SDR. So stand by for 10 seconds. Why is SDR not connected? No, you should be connected. Sorry, I didn't have enough USB ports over there. We'll go to this other laptop here. So I'll launch Conky real quick. So you can see here it says SDR connected. All you have to do with touch, click ET aircraft or do it with your finger because touch works here. And you can just see the map shifted up. So as geodetected, it's using the onboard or it's using that SDR, that software defined radio. And you can already see we've got aircraft popping up, no internet whatsoever. So I can click on either one of these guys. It's either going to show the tail number or the iCal something identifier that's used for the aircraft. You can click the little info icon here, and completely offline, I also have a offline copy of the FAA database. I don't bring up all the data, but I merge that data, and we can see that this is a Piper PA 28181, the corporation that has the license for this aircraft, or it's a corporation. The owner is SkyWest Leasing Inc. We get tail number in Utah. So very much taking my background in doing enterprise search, enterprise content management, back-end software development, the whole shebang. And then, so simple to use. So this is one using the offline map engine. The entire US is available to me. The maps that I've created for US and Canada that are packaged in will take you only to the zoom level of the interstate highway level. And this was a compromise because this is an off-grid platform. The entire image needs to fit on a USB thumb drive that can be loaded and run in memory. So I made these compromises. The other thing you can do is, again, with the touch of a finger, I'm not going to touch my machine. You could go to the table view. We can sort by any column. So let's say I want to sort by altitude. Click on that. Sort the other direction. Sort by speed. You want to sort by type. You can click on any one of these. So for example, let me click on that guy. The map moves. Let's say I want to zoom in, hide. Let's say I move off the map, right? I can always use this little crosshairs to recenter me on the map. Increase size as needed. And then I also have the ability to do basic filtering. So let's say that I'm interested mostly in government, which I don't know if there's any government craft. I'll do apply. none right now. So this would have been handy for a Phoenix PD when that bird was overhead. But I could do also like LLC, individual, and it looks like there's just one. And again, we can click on this guy, do info. So a lot of engineering went into this. So what you're seeing here is plug and play. All I had to do was, without doing anything, take that RTL SDR, plug it in. It was picking up RF signals over the air. And all I had to do was click that little airplane icon. Behind the scenes, it is talking to an SDR service that's able to read the transponder beacons. It is using an offline map engine that I wrote to display the map. And then it's also talking to what I call that API that I wrote that you also don't see, that bridges together real-time aircraft data with offline FAA data. So everything I do in EmComm tools is going to have this approach. And if you guys do want to continue supporting me, the types of applications that I'm going to be developing in R6, R7, R8, the next releases, are going to only be pretty much about building value-add software like that. So if you like it, you feel it has value, I really encourage you guys to support me over on the Buy Me a Coffee side. Again, I hate doing these shameless plugs, but I gave up a considerable tech salary 2.5 months ago to do this, and I only have runway for 6 months before I may have to go back and just kind of stop everything I'm doing. And really, that's just the best way to help. There's multiple different tiers, but if that speaks to you, that's what my vision is. Simple to use, plug and play, all of that good stuff. Okay. The next demo I want to show you is the piece that I'm working on. Actually, no, it was this one. So there's this application called ET Predict, okay? And again, you can see here it shares a very similar interface, right? You're geo-detected. It has the same offline map engine that's used. It has the same type of layout. And for example, let's say that I want to plan a contact. Actually, let's say here's Andrew, right? Andrew is K4EXA. Andrew's also a great member over on Buy Me a Coffee. So we'll put K4EXA. And again, without access to the internet, it's going to talk to that service. And let me hide this message here. And we can see, yep, Andrew's his name. He's in Alabama. This is his grid. The zip code is used for the lat long. He's 1,400 miles away at a bearing of 84 degrees. We can see this is the closest we get into. Actually, we might go one level further. Yeah, this is as far as we can go in. I can zoom out and we can see how far Andrew is from my location. I didn't have time to add the piece that connects the points, but you're the blue point. He's the red one. And then at the bottom here, very simple. This is using the VOACAP HF prediction under the hood. Again, it's not perfect. It assumes just a dipole antenna right now. It assumes a certain height, but in general, this is going to be good enough. So imagine there's a world where the internet doesn't exist and we want to try to figure this out. So I don't have every output power there. I wanted this simple for the field. I want everything to work with touch, but it defaults to 5 watts in JSA call. So let's go ahead and do predict. So right now it looks like, which makes sense based on me having light, 10 meters, 12, 15, and 17 are going to be the bands to try. But then later, let's say I want to plan the contact for some time in the next 24 hours. Right now it's 1400 UTC, so we see 1500. We can scroll down. I know with Andrew, for example, at night, my best path to him is 40 meters. So if we scroll down, we should see, I think so the 30-meter band is starting to open up here at 1 UTC. We should have 40 pop up here. I'm surprised that here we go. So 0900 UTC, which is 2 a.m. my time, 40 meter opens up. And based on our interactions, that's the time that things start to work. So again, it's not perfect, but it's meant to be very high speed, very quick. Again, I can take one of my local buddies, WN7D. Right now, 40 meters should be open. We'll go ahead and do a search. He's 32 miles away. I'll zoom out a little bit. We'll do the same 5 watts of power, JS8 call, and we should have a path on what I expect at 80, 60, and 40 at 100%. And this pretty much models reality for the most part. I also recently added support for email. So for example, there's this station that I like connecting to called Delta Zero Juliet DO Delta Oscar. Shoot, I forgot his why can't I remember his DO. All right, let me do this. What am I connected here to? We'll do it on the IC7200. So we're going to do a quick demo. We're going to go to ET mode here real quick. And we're going to do WinLink RDOP. Okay, so what it's going to do behind the scenes, it's going to start the WinLink service behind the scenes. It's going to stop and kill all the other services. And for WinLink, we want to connect. And let's say that I want to use RDOP as our modem. EmComm tool supports AX25, VARA FM, and VARA HF. And then I'm going to show the RMS list, and this sorts by local. So it's NODAJ. So right now, if I were to click on this, I could jump over to 14 megahertz here. So NODAJ. We'll launch ET Predict again. I'll type in his call sign, NODAJ. We'll do the search. Let's say that I'm doing 10 watts. I'm in the field where I'm located, and I want to do RDOP. And then I do have to scroll down here because it's on a small screen. We'll do the prediction, and it's telling me right now I should be able to, at 10 watts on the RDOP modem, hit them on 80 meters, 60, and 40, and they're going to have the option to see later as well. So I know right now, maybe we could go ahead and try it. Let's go ahead and see if we can hit him. We'll go back here, and we'll see if we can connect on, let's do 40 meters. Again, I don't know if we're going to be able to connect right now, but we'll try, mostly because of the solar activity that's going on. So behind me, my radio is, hopefully it's keying up. It's trying to connect. In addition to all of that, the other things that are happening behind the scenes is that all of the audio levels were set accordingly. So for example, if I was looking at my audio levels, it should have everything configured. So yeah, this may not work right now. We have a lot of solar activity, which is outside of the scope of the prediction. But that's a little bit of the tour of how quickly we can go ahead and look up information and do a number of these techniques. Let's see what we have here in terms of, oh, we connected. Check out this, guys. We are connected to the station. So one of the problems I've always had with the way the WinLink sorts the stations that you have access to is that, and you can see we're connected to the station in Wickenburg here, is that it sorts it by distance. And that's actually kind of stupid if you're not doing regional comms with a antenna that's deployed low to the ground, that works with near vertical incident skywave propagation. A lot of nerd words there. So the next iteration of EmComm tools, I'm going to take the work that I've done for this prediction, build a new version of a front end for this email, and it's going to have a pick best station. So rather than me going into action, connect, and going down to this RMS list here and sorting it based on proximity to me, it's going to find whatever station I have the highest likelihood right now of connecting to. So I like to say that EmComm Tools is built on top of building blocks. And every release I had to do plug and play first, the ability to plug a USB cable in and unplug it and have it talk to the radio. I had to have all these modes. I had to do auto configuration. I had to do offline data sets, offline API, offline mapping. And now I'm getting to the point, and this is where the value is going to come if you guys consider supporting me, so that I can continue to spend 2 to 3 days per week just writing software that, this one is not bad. I'm grateful that this exists, but I want all of the software that I write to look modern but work offline. So this will look more like the traditional email client you see on your iPhone or iPad, for example. In fact, when you pick a mode, for example, there shouldn't be any reason why. Oh, cool! I got a message. There shouldn't be a reason why when I go into Action Connect that I need to go pick this transport. If I know I'm going to start in the RDOT mode, this should be selected for me, and all of these defaults. So I'm trying to eliminate as many clicks as possible. And then to kill the mode, all I have to do is close this. And now I can actually jump back to JSA call. It's warning me that since I don't have GPS installed here, that that the time might be off. In fact, I'm going to be doing a video on time sync. I'm going to record it on Sunday and all the different ways to handle that. So you can see here, JSA call popped up. It's actually set to the frequency we had for WinLink. I can go set it back here, and now I can go right click here, do a direct message, and everybody that can hear me within 30 seconds will get back to me. So I call this mode hopping, and EmComm Tools is designed for one mode at a time. I don't want to wait for that to come back. Maybe we'll look at it later. So let's talk about the philosophy of EmComm Tools, and I've kind of alluded to a lot of it. So number one, it's an appliance. Number two, when you kill a mode, so when I closed the WinLink window and then I went to go start JSA call, it does a couple things. The first thing it does is kill every single service that could be using your cat control or your audio. It just hits it with a sledgehammer. And this comes from some work I did in 2010 when I built actually, I built a Ring camera before Ring existed in 2005 that I used to watch a graduate laboratory. And then I did some IoT programming for a sprinkler automation system back in 2010. So a lot of the design philosophy comes from the IoT work where there are no interfaces, the Internet of Things world. And when you plug something in, reboot it, you just need to kill everything back to a known state. So EmComm Tools is very heavy-handed. So if it's unplugged, kill every EmComm tool service. On mode change, kill every service that's running. Every time you start an application, it rewrites the configuration with all of the your location details, your user or your amateur radio call sign. It resets the devices, the audio, everything. And then it only starts the mode if one, it's properly configured, which it does for you. Two, it's plugged in. So for example, which system is this here? Okay, this is the FT818ND. So we're not connected. So if I go to start JSA call, can't start JSA call. No supported audio device plugged in. So again, it may seem trivial to most people, but again, in the field, you may be under stress or whatever, and it could be that you forget those things. So I don't do it to be annoying. I do it as a reminder. If you don't have the GPS plugged in, it's a reminder that, hey, your time may be out of sync. So there may be nothing wrong with your radio. There may be nothing wrong with your antenna. The reason why you're not decoding signals is because your audio or you're not in sync. So again, I'll tell you the one criticism I get is from the power users. This is not for power users. If you are a traditional amateur radio operator, use it like an appliance. Like, don't try to futz with it, right? I'm not going to make this do the advanced mode and the simple mode. This is designed for me in the field, for my wife to use later, and that's it. So if you want to take full control and bring whatever radios and install whatever software, you can do that, but you may break things. So it's really not designed for that. It's designed to do what I show you, ease of mode hopping and a few other things. Again, getting back to the service or the mode only starts if it's configured, plugged in, and detected. I try to talk to the user in plain English. None of this nerd stuff. I don't talk about ports. It said, hey, your radio is not plugged in. Your SDR is not plugged in, right? You don't have a call sign set. You don't get some obscure error. So let's talk about how this magic works. And I call it the nerd details. So number one, it is based on an older version of Linux, Ubuntu 22.10. That's when I started development of R2. Nothing has changed. The reason why I went with Ubuntu 22.10 was at that time, all of the hardware, all the Panasonics, all of the touch, 99% of the devices all worked on it. Since this is designed to be an appliance, the fact that it's running Linux is not an important detail. So I won't update it because every time they do an update, they change the way things work. In fact, Ubuntu 22.10, I fixed kernel issues. I fixed issues with GPS. I have customized it so that it doesn't get in your face. When you log in, it doesn't prompt you to use Ubuntu's cloud service. It turns off all of those nag screens about backups. It turns off all the power settings that prevent you from operating the field. So it says never dim my screen, never go to sleep. All of that stuff is what you need in a system like this. And if I were to do that on every version of Ubuntu, that would be time that would be taken away from building the prediction application, the upcoming ET email, the upcoming AT APRS. All of this stuff just works. So don't connect it to the internet because there are security issues. But for its intended purpose of being off-grid, offline first, it's valuable. Chat's being very quiet, so hopefully you guys are still taking this. Other bit of nerd detail, the way that I do plug-and-play support is through the Unix device subsystem called UDEV. And someone I think earlier mentioned, it's pretty cool that it handles all the different radios. So please, let me know you're alive. If you've ever had to figure out what your COM port is on Windows for your radio, or you had to figure out your serial device under Linux, dev, TTY, USB 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or dev, TTY, ACM 0, 1, 2, let me know. EmComm Tools only knows about, 4 devices. Are you a cat control serial device to control the radio? If it is, it calls it dev etcat. Everywhere in the system you plug it in, it doesn't matter if under the hood it comes up as dev TTY USB 4. It's symlinked to dev etcat regardless of radio. When your radio is in that supported list, it always does this. It doesn't matter how many times you reboot. There is no question about it. Dev ET audio, same thing. It doesn't matter what sound card you're using as long as it is supported, like a DigiRig Mobile or the sound cards that are built into various Yaesu radios or ICOM radios. It's always Dev ET audio. The GPS units, I only support a handful of them, but and they're listed on the community site, it's always Dev ET GPS. So all of the software consistently has the same name for everything. So there is a typo. Again, the purpose of this was for me to fix issues. With R4, we have ETSDR as well. So anytime you plug in a supported SDR, that is there. All of the services. So this is one thing that you never do in EmComm Tools. You never use sudo, sudo. This is to elevate your privileges. You will break things. EmComm Tools was deliberately designed to run as whatever user you're logged in as. The API, the map server, WinLink, all of the services. And one of the other operating system changes I made is that you're able to talk to all the devices as your normal non-administrative or your non-root user. And all of those services are using systemd with the -- user. The way that you control the radio to hit that push to talk button or control the frequency is through hamlib, and it's using the hamlib rig control daemon or service behind the scenes. And every single application, whether you're Yak, Pat Winlink, JSA Call, FL Digi, doesn't matter. If your radio works through hamlib and works through rig control and it's in the configuration, that's the interface it uses. You can't use I forget what the graphical tool is, but all of this happens behind the scenes. When I plug in a radio, in fact, I want to show you that real quick here. Let's look on my IC7200. If we take a look, some nerd stuff, if I take a look at the process list and we look for the hamlib rig control daemon, you can see that it's opt EmComm tools, SBIN, and it runs this wrapper. And this is exactly how it's talking to the radio. It's using -M. So for the IC7200, the model identifier is 3061. The serial port is dev etcat, always consistent. I know that for the 7200, it's always 19200 baud rate. And to key the PTT, it uses the rig control. Just in case if you guys don't believe me, let's go ahead now and switch over to the machine that's off camera. I wasn't planning on doing this demo, but I want to nail the point of there is no magic, but plug and play. I did not want to involve the user. So we're going to take and turn on the FT818ND. We're going to make sure that we go to ET radio and it's set. I think it's already set. So we'll go to ET radio. Boom. So now it's prepared to accept something connected. If I search for the process, the rig control process, so rig control D, you'll notice that nothing comes back. No smoke and mirrors. We're taking the USB here cable. I'm not smart enough for special effects. In fact, I'm kind of a big dummy, and this is why I have to build solutions like this. So now we will rerun this command. And you can see now that we have the rig control running. It has a different ID. 1041 is the ID for the FT818D. Let me shrink this down size-wise. You can see it's still referring to dev etcat. This radio has a different baud rate and a different method. It uses the RTS, the ready to transmit signal for keying the PTT. Now, the cooler part is, right, do process listing. I'm going to unplug this thing. Got the cable in my hand here. Gone. So this is part of that hit the sledgehammer and reset. So guys, please let me know if you're still with me. I'm going to take a minute here to, oh, got another super chat. Hold on a second. We're going to have to respond to the super chat. Let me see what's going on here. A couple things. Someone was asking for the no random contacts playlist. Did anybody find that? I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick. No random contact. Actually, let me look real quickly on my YouTube channel real quick. I'm going to see if it's a quick one for me to find. I want to make sure that you guys get that one. That one, if I could recommend only one set of my videos, it would absolutely be that one. Damn, playlists. No random. I should have this stuff bookmarked. Priorities, right? Ah, I found it. Cool. All right. So we got that guy here answered. And thank you for the super chat, Beehive. Thanks for doing the work for us who want off-grid comms. I had a similar ham arc as you. Not a hobbyist, definitely identify with no random contacts. Well, thank you. I appreciate the super chat there. Gnostic Pasta, another member. Thanks. Just ordered a new mug. Needed a new one anyhow. Yeah, I'll go ahead and that's easy for me, guys. So the nice thing about the mugs on the channel is that they're on-demand prints, so I don't have to go back and forth for like the keyboards that I'm selling right now and the gear where I have to go to the post office. So those mugs really do help me out a little bit since I'm not involved in the full fulfillment. Let's see what else here. Any support for non-US mapping from OpenStreetMap? So yes, so in R5 right now, I do have some support for Canada. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do UK. That will be the next one. It might make it. And then I'd like to do Australia. And then in terms of the offline call sign look database, I don't know if it's going to make it for Canada, UK, and Australia, but that will be coming. So yeah, those are the 4 markets right now for the OpenStreetMap stuff. So this is a good one. Will local map tiles be shared across different apps? Yes, that's 100% for the design. So the ET aircraft application, the ET predict application, and the future APRS application, the future WinLink, they all use the same tile system that I built already into EmComm tools. Again, right now I only support US and Canada for this release, just because I did a member live stream where I showed these guys how I built those from scratch. And it's a lot of effort to build these pre-cached data sets that go down to interstate level. Let's see here. Oh, did I miss Josh? Wow, $49.99. What's the significance on $49.99? I'm not up to speed on the YouTube scene, but thank you. Josh said, did the R4 build yesterday. Great instructions, super easy. Yeah, as long as you follow them in order, you're fine. In fact, R5 is nearly identical. There's just going to be a couple new screens, but the approach is the same. It's going to take a little bit longer to do the install because there's more software packages. Depending on which maps you pick, the image could be about 8 gigs. Mine's 8 gigs inside, which isn't large enough where it still works in memory. But yeah, like I said, even if you're non-technical, give it a shot. And then Josh, like I said, Cubic, which is the application we use to build the images, because you have to build the images for licensing reasons. You can use your current build of R4 to build the R5 image. So you're one step ahead of the game. Thank you, Gnostic Papa, $20. I like this. Maybe we can make YouTube a full-time thing here. So Aaron says, do you have a pre-built image that's able to download? So I'm going to be very clear, guys. I can't create images and host them for download. And the reason for it is the licensing with Ubuntu. Canonical does not let you redistribute their ISO images unless you build everything from source, which I can't do. I wouldn't be able to work on anything else. And then you have to debrand everything. And then I could make an EmComm tools version that is technically an Ubuntu derivative. I can't really even state too much about that, but it would take me personally a year to do that work, and I can't. The other option is for me to go out and ask Ubuntu if for what I'm doing, they would allow it. In fact, now that I'm doing this full time, I think I should go ahead and make that request to them. So if I'm able to get Ubuntu, if anybody knows anybody who works at Canonical at Ubuntu and has a reference, please let me know, because I would love to be able to pay for cloud storage and you guys just download the image yourself. But right now on the EmComm tools or the community.emcommtools.com site, you have to build the ISO image yourself for liability issues. And please don't post these on the internet. I've told people, if these start to surface on the internet, I will cancel the whole project and stop because I don't want to be on the hook for that. So please, 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 what I do recommend is get together in the at local events. I will do something called an install fest every once in a while at Hamfests, where we'll do a build and then we'll install EmComm tools in everybody's laptop. So reach out to Canonical. These are great questions, guys. Thank you for all the interaction. We've got 66 people there. All right. Let's see here. Wow. So Carlos says, wow, I'd normally be asleep for work tonight, but luckily checked in here. Wow. Thanks, Gaston. My favorite appliance salesman. Yeah, he nailed it on the head. Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate you, buddy. I don't know if there's any other super chats, but I'll see if there. Yeah, there's one by Carlos again. This is literally the KISS principles in action and getting even simpler. We appreciate you. I like the behind the scenes stuff, by the way. Yeah, I do this a lot on the member live streams. I do something called a nerd hour. I know it's not for everybody, but especially the bit that we're on right now where I talk about this. In fact, if you guys are willing to hang out, I have bonus slides at the end where I'll do some of the nerd stuff. So if you're more inclined, I'll show you the architecture. So thank you. It looks like I'm all caught up here, at least in terms of the super chat. So I wanted to make sure I gave you guys your chance. So there's no magic. So Ubuntu 22.10, I have reasons for it. It's not going to change. I did take a note to contact Canonical to see if they'll give me a license. And then I'm using some very low-level Unix wizardry to hide how the sausage is made for everybody. So again, Chris, you don't download it. What you want to do is, and I probably should put this up on the big screen here. You want to go to community.emcommtools.com. And this site is going to be updated for the Thanksgiving Day release. And if you follow it step by step, so if you start at home, you understand what you're getting into, you go to getting started. I talk about user expectations, right? Very clear English. I talk about the prerequisites. I talk about how you create the bootable media, how to install Ubuntu, I mean, step by step, how to go through the process of installing the image build tools, and then ultimately how to create it. I mean, screenshot by screenshot. And I'm going to be going through this process again with brand new screenshots. But once you have the actual image built yourself and have it on the USB drive, it's just like a standard Ubuntu install. And then you go right into the user guide and you just start using it with what we talked about. First login, ET user, ET radio, ET mode, and you're up on the air. And you can use this 20 years into the future because it doesn't require an internet connection. So as long as your hardware and your radios don't die, that's the beauty. You will never run into a problem. If everything works, you're not going to run into some mysterious new problem later on, right? How many people have been burnt by the next upgrade of Windows or the next upgrade of some iOS application? It's a pain in the ass. So I don't mind being 3 years behind on the distribution. One, it allows me to focus on other things, but I know everything works because I fixed everything to make it work like an appliance. So Chris, good luck with that. Again, another shameless plug. I've got a private Discord that's available to the members. It's kind of a walled garden, and there's a channel in there called EmComm Tools Community, and that's where a lot of the community helps each other. I just don't have time for support. The way that I do support is I will get on live streams, I'll do installs, and the community kind of just helps me out. Otherwise, I wouldn't have time to do anything else. So that's the link. And again, that whole site is going to be fully updated. It's going to look 99% the same. It's just going to have a few more pieces of information for the new release. Back to the nerd details. I use ALSA, love it or hate it, but it's the Audio Linux subsystem for audio or something like that, or Advanced Linux subsystem for audio. And all the devices are configured with audio levels. So when you start a new mode, it automatically configures the audio levels for you. In fact, let's do that demo real quick. You guys have to see this, right? So I don't know which one I'm on here. Okay. So we're going to run ALSA Mixer real quickly here. Actually, no, we're going to launch. No, I'm going to connect the radio again. I'm going to connect my 818 off screen. Okay, so it should be detected. I'm going to run the low-level audio system, so you don't have to muck with audio levels in EmComm tools. If that has ever got you up, let me know. If you ever configured digital data modes before on Windows or Linux, and you couldn't figure out your speaker volume, or you couldn't figure out your microphone input volume, and you couldn't figure out what to do with auto gain, I want to know. So for example, I'm on a remote desktop session. Okay. So I just plugged in my FT818, and this is the audio device, okay? You can see here that the speaker is at 27. The mic is not going to record anything, so you're kind of screwed. And this is jacked up, right? Normally, you would have to go and figure out for your radio, for your audio settings, how to do that. The second you launch an application like JS8 Call, there's code behind the scenes that will automatically I just did it, automatically change the speaker levels to levels that I know work based on that interface. And if you follow the instructions when you put in ET radio of set your mic gain level here on your radio, the speaker level of 29, this mic input at 52, left right capture at 31, and muted, EmComm Tools sets that, and it sets it differently for each supported radio. So I had to go through the exercise of doing this for the TX500 MP, which also used a digirig, had slightly different settings. So again, unless you're a nerd, you don't have to worry about this, but these were all of the hangups. When I showed you guys, let me jump back out of it. Gosh, what year was this? This must have been 2021 or 2020. Why the F are data modes so hard? Well, audio was just one of them. All the settings on the radio are another one. So again, it's more than it's an ecosystem and a philosophy that, based on me building solutions for customers that had to accommodate every age, I took all of that and built on top of software that was out there, but did that zero config, fully automated, full unplug reset approach. So that's what EmComm Tools is about. So when people complain, oh, I'm a Windows user, I can't do Linux, or I'm a Linux user, but I hate your choice for Linux. Sorry, that's my sad ham voice. But when I get stuff like that, it's like the only way to do what I'm doing is to have a full operating system that takes over and does all of that. And if you're not comfortable with it, just don't use the software. I mean, it really is that simple. So Carlos says the auto change of also mixer was cool. Yeah. So I tend not to share those details of how the sausage is made, but I think they're important. That and I've shared this story a few times. Yeah, we're almost done. When I showed this to my brother-in-law, who got into amateur radio a few months ago, I had the 818 with a VHF antenna on it, and he wanted to see if he could get back to my packet-based BBS station at the house. And all I did was plug it in and hit mode. He's like, yeah, all you did was plug it in. I'm like, yeah, that's all I did as the user. But as the engineer or the architect, all of these things were done based on every pain point, where I've almost broken computers and hardware and radios in the past out of sheer frustration of how difficult it is. So my buddy Brian Baldwin, he says no email notification. Yeah, Brian, this was a last minute stream. I'm doing a dry run of my presentation, and we're an hour and 38 minutes into it, but lots of great conversation here. Actually, a lot of good stuff. So what are the steps to get started if you like what you've seen? So number one, I would wait until Thanksgiving and I make the announcement that R5 is out. The instructions right now on community.emcommtools.com represent the April Fool's release, or the actual April release. So if you want those maps and the aircraft and the HF prediction and FL Digi and all of those modes, that's coming in a few weeks. It's basically done. Number two, you do have to, actually, you could do this ahead. You do need to install Ubuntu 22.10 on a separate machine that you don't mind wiping, because it's required. It's kind of a bootstrapping phase. You need to install it and go through the steps to build the image. If you already have EmComm tools version 3, R3, R4, you can actually start there. You can skip this step. You can use R3 or R4 to build the image. And again, that's fully documented in the community site that I just shared. And then you write the ISO image. There is a section on the community site, which is probably worth sharing. So under FAQ here, supported equipment, I talk about the supported hardware. This list is going to be updated. These are the supported radios. Again, the list will be updated on Thanksgiving Day. And then I also have things like dumb radios, supported Bluetooth devices, supported GPS units. And if you click through these ones here, this is a good way of also supporting the channel. This is all gear that I use, and these go to my affiliate links. But even like on the getting started, where I talk about the prerequisites, I do like these SanDisk 64 or 32 gig USB drives. I like the faster 400 megahertz ones. I've got probably 10 or 12 of these, and this is what I use to install EmComm tools. So the documentation is there. Unfortunately, I can't cater to the TikTok generation that has no attention span. If you want to use EmComm tools until I'm able to figure out something with Canonical, you have to go here. I recommend just carving out a day, maybe a weekend or whatever, and just go through this site in step by step. And trust me, people that are 75 years old and have only worked with Windows have done it. So I know you guys can do it. Just I've been very deliberate in the documentation. Everything I do is copy and paste, so it should be straightforward. And then again, once you log in, ET user one time, ET radio, configure your radio, plug it in, and then just use ET mode. Chris just saw a squirrel. Attention span, what? Yep. So yeah, people told me that I need to make my videos 30 seconds. I said there's no way. I like to understand how things work, and this is why this is turning into an hour and 41-minute episode. A lot of that has to do with ADHD, but more of it has to do with there's a lot of meaningful information that is hard to communicate by the written word on the community site or in chat and things of that nature. Oh, Mike said, I think my SanDisk Ventoy drive just died last night. That's strange. I've never had one die. The previous Gorilla drives I've had die, but the SanDisk I've had very good luck. What have your talks with Canonical been like so far? I haven't talked to them. I haven't had the chance. Like I said, I work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I barely have time. In fact, my wife now is getting pulled into the business and is the one handling. After I do the packaging and fulfillment, she's doing all the shipping. But again, if anybody has a contact at Ubuntu or Canonical, the same company, let me know. I'd like to see if we can get an exception for what I built to allow me to produce ISO images that you don't have to build yourself, so that you just download it, use like Balena Etcher to copy it to a USB drive, and then you do a 20-minute install on the air. That has always been my vision. But that's been the hurdle, and I refuse to get sued by them. Okay, so mobile ops, you guys have seen it. So these days, how everything has changed. This is my 857 man pack. The big man packs are coming back next year. Using the Dell 7220 coax. So very easy for mobile operation. Off here on the right-hand side, this is, I'm using the offline map. So this is Navit. I did turn-by-turn directions to the last Hamfest. I find the best way to do them is to put your GPS geo-coordinates, save it as a bookmark, and go. Works incredibly well. But then these days, this is kind of where I've landed. So as of 2025, as of today, my EmComm tools and field expedient backcountry use is more on the right. It's the Panasonic FZM1. Don't have it next to me. It's the 7-inch tablet with the iKey keyboard. And guys, I actually have 5 of these left. I'm not going to order any more from iKey because I can't have that amount of inventory. They give me a little bit of break so I can make a little bit of money, but I'm not going to be carrying the iKey keyboards. The members went through it, and it looks like I still have some left. So for anybody curious about an iKey keyboard that has a Panasonic FZM1 Mark 1 or Mark 2, this is the last time I'm going to sell them. You still may be able to find them on the used market. Mine are all units, but so I'm running that with the GPS, and then these days my radio of choice is the Lab 599 TX500 MP, and I can do communication from where I'm at home all the way through those 7 concentric circles of communication, all the way from city, county, state, region, um, all the way to other parts of the world, just with this setup. In fact, this one, I was in a Canon. If you guys haven't seen this video, I'm going to pull this one up. This is probably one of my favorite videos that I've done. I think it's less than 10 minutes, but I encourage you guys to see what's possible, because I was operating in a canyon 200 miles from home on 10 watts of power with a compromised antenna deployed in 2 minutes, 5 feet or like 7 feet off the ground. And again, if you want to see what's possible and why it's worth getting your license, let me get over here. I really encourage people to take a look at this video. In fact, on that video, actually, I'm going to play a little bit of that. I'm going to kill the audio. I think I'm the only one who can hear it. It was really funny. Let me see if I can open up here. I'm going to mute the audio and narrate. All right. Oh, play. Okay. So in this scene here, we are 200 miles from my location. My group is 200 miles from me. We've hiked about a mile and a half. We're in a canyon with well over 1,500-foot rock structures on 3 sides. This is my bag maker, Zach, amazing guy, Reaper Fabrics, and he's doing my land nav kits. I've got 250 of those coming. He brought his dog. I had my dog Scout, and you can see over here off in the distance the coax. And I'm going to play this here. His dog grabbed that stick. He just dropped it. TX500 MP is on the ground, and it launched about, well, first it hit 2 rocks. It hit this rock in front, the rock behind it where it was sitting got dragged, and the only thing that came off was the USB cable. And this was not one of my first. It's probably my first 10 field operations. But the dog got caught on the coax here, and the thing that took it was the USB interface between the radio and the digirig. And let's see here. I think I got a better shot. Oh no. You're going to have to wait to the end. But anyways, the reason why I brought that up is what you're going to see on the channel coming up here is a lot of operation with the FZM1 and that TX500 MP. There's nothing wrong. Actually, I'm going to plug this again. There's nothing wrong with the FT818ND in the man pack. It's just a little bit heavier, clunkier, doesn't have as much power. I have no intention of selling them. I have 2 of them, twin units. But if you are a field operator, okay, and you can get by with 10 watts and you like how I operate, it's a great radio, but it's $1,600. It's pricey. It works great with EmComm tools. I mean, it works fantastic on digital modes. But I got a lot of guys that keep on chasing me and chasing the radios I use. And I said, just use what you have and learn to use them. Focus on the communication. The field training company that I'm working on and building out, I'm not even going to allow people to bring radios unless they absolutely work and are supported within the gear set. I'm going to be using my 5 man packs, my 891 man pack, the 2 857 man packs, the 2 818 man packs, and the TX500 here for instruction, right? For me, it doesn't really matter what the radio is so far as it's able to carry out the communication needs that you have. So as I go into the backcountry and do this stuff, don't be so fixated on the actual gear that I'm using. I want to start moving away from the gear because everything now is dialed in. Everything is in that man pack style configuration. The digital gear now is all turnkey plug and play. And I want to focus on doing more targeted contacts, more showing people about how to plan those things out. And I want to focus less on the gear. So right now, the Tech Prepper de facto gear is one of the FT818s, 857s, or the TX500MP. And I just like the Panasonic line of either the G1 or the FZM1. So that's what's going on there. So Gnostic Papa says, seeing that video on the Manpack, the MP, made me feel so much better about dropping the high price to buy one. I love mine. Yeah, it's amazing. It could have gone the other way where what ended up happening was that, it took the hit on the screen. It didn't. But just insert whatever radio. So, for example, I hated and was disappointed because I bled and still bleed Yaesu. The Yaesu FTX1F, the one field, if this was an FTX1F, it would have been a $1,500 brick probably. I mean, that screen that looks like a gangbanger from 1990s in his souped up Honda Civic with the big radio display. You guys know who grew up in the 90s with the purple, orange, and all those lights. It's unnecessary for the field. It's an unnecessary power draw on top of it. But yeah, the TX500MP, they just nailed it so much. Chris said, I did chase the 891 Manpack. I love it. That's actually what I recommend for people versus trying to find an old 857 Manpack. I just want a Manpack bag. And he says he has an FX4CR and 6100. Both are supported in R4 now. So he scored on those. Yeah, you did, bud. Okay, guys. So I think I'm almost at the end of my presentation. So let's talk about the future roadmap for R6, R7, and R8. All three of these releases are going to be done next year. And I haven't quite figured out the order, but Xiegu X6200 will go into an early build. There will be support for international call sign lookups. Again, I'm going to go market by market. So that demo with ET Predict, where you put in a call sign, I'm going to build it for and include it for Canada, the UK, and Australia. At the point in which I have those, I'm going to document the format, and I'll be open to contributions from the community for other markets like Asia, for example. But I'm not there yet, so that is coming. International offline maps, again, the plan. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it for this R5 release since we're running out of weeks here or days. UK will be next on the list. I might be able to get UK in, Australia next, and then I may go back and do, I'll look at the next market that's popular with my audience in this group. A program called ET Settings, a very simple graphical application. In fact, I'm going to force it on first startup when you first log in, and it'll be a graphical application that is going to replace ET User for the most part, so setting your call sign. It's going to have tools to set your grid square based on the map, so it's going to build on those geolocation services. And then I'm also going to incorporate into that potentially, I haven't decided if I want ET radio and ET mode to be included in that mix. It may be all three in one, but I'm trying to get away from getting people to use that little terminal program or the command line or the command shell, whatever you want to call it. ET mail is going to be my focus. There is so much value in HF off-grid email. So ET mail is going to have a few things. It's going to be a graphical application. When you start it as a mode, it's going to ask you which mode you want to be in, RDOP, packet, or VARA. And based on that mode, it's only going to surface to you the WinLink stations that even support that mode. And more than anything, it's going to have an interface that looks like your email client on your phone. So the mail client you use on your iPhone or iPad, it's going to look more like that. And it's going to have some features that allow you to get space weather information without you having to figure out the magic incantation of you have to put inquiry in the to field and then request in the subject and then put a special payload of wwv underscore or prop underscore wwv. There is support for peer-to-peer that's coming. So I'm going to do it next year. I don't know if I'm going to release it next year, but I have a prototype where with WinLink, I can do encrypted WinLink email. And it's not so much for HF, but I have a commercial business license and we can use WinLink with VHF. So there will be encrypted WinLink email coming. So again, guys, if you don't want to see me go back to work, I know it's a broken record. Consider coming over on the Buy Me Coffee side. That's my lifeblood to keep this going. I've got a vision for everything, and this video kind of is my case for that. So if you kind of walk through where I was 5 years from now, screaming at a Baofeng and not understanding what interface to get and couldn't figure out what settings, I'm working on all of this, and it's just a build to get all this stuff a little bit better. So Mike asks, Jeff, ETC should work on the MK3. The iKeyboards do. Oh, yeah. So to be clear, he's talking about the Panasonic FZM1 Mark III. I've got one running behind me. What we were showing the demo was a Mark III. I'm just using the dock. The only reason they don't work with the iKey keyboards is because there's a small variance. I drilled mine recently with a Dremel. I opened up the hole a little bit on the bottom. I don't know if it was like 1/32 of an inch, but it does mate. I am hesitant to tell people to do that. In fact, I contacted iKey and I told them, I said, hey guys, I bought 90 or 70 iKey keyboards from you guys over the last year and a half. Can you solve this problem? Because we're limiting our market because the Mark III is faster. So yeah, EmComm Tools works on the MK1, 2, and 3. And iKey is looking at it. They're trying to source a Mark III one right now, and they're trying to see if they have an aftermarket shim or solution. But definitely EmComm Tools. In fact, it works the best on a Mark III. In fact, the audio for alerts also works in that. So Chris says, are you going to add satellite stuff? No, not in these next 3 releases. Let me show you what else is coming in the next set of releases here. So ET-JSA call. So I love JSA call. For me, it's the mode that allows me to do off-grid HF communication when conditions could not be worse, even during solar activity with crap antennas, low to the ground antennas. It just works. So EmComm Tools is going to get an application that has the map. It's going to show you where people are located. You're going to be able to click on a pin and send a message to them. It's going to have an inbox feature. So I'm going to be using FLDigi, JSA Call, Yak, the APRS client, all 3 of those in these versions of EmComm Tools, including WinLink, are all going to take a back seat. They'll be in the background as hidden modems. And I'm going to be building these very simple to use, Grandma can use them, tools for all the messaging. This is what my background was making sites. In fact, if I didn't, I would be out of a job. So ET-JSA call is coming. There's going to be a high-speed ET messenger that is going to be modem agnostic. So it can use JSA call on the back end. It can use FLDigi with encryption that I'm working on. It could be used with a whole host of things. And there'll be a contact list as well. So there's also going to be an app called ET Contacts. And it'll import your contacts if you want to copy them over from your phone. And you can import what you want. And I'll be able to have all my ham buddies in there. You can do import from a JSA call station you hear. And then when you go to messaging, you can build your own offline contact lists. Chris says, now you're showing off mapping-based messaging. Yeah, sign me up. Yeah, like I said, I've had this vision for years. The thing I haven't had is the time. So quitting my job 2.5 months ago and focusing on 2 to 3 days of research and development is what's allowing me to do this. And again, this is all for free. So it's really only possible based on support like this, because YouTube still is not, I'm not making more than $300 a month and haven't for over 2.5 years with YouTube. ET APRS, and then there's a couple of other pieces coming in. So FL Message, FL AMP, I didn't have time to add those. Those are part of the broader FLDigi suite. Part of my video content too that I want to do this year is I want to get back to basics, and I want to start going back and sharing with people that, for example, right now I could do word salad or acronym soup, and we could talk about RDOP and VARA and PSK and FSQ and FL message, FL amp, APRS, and nobody knows what that means. I've been ingrained in this the last 5 years, so I know. So I want to go back. We're going to use the tools that I'm building here, and we're going to talk about why it's important. But you don't have to know how APRS works, but you should know what it's able to do for you. So the roadmap, the software is going to support a lot of those discussions. SDR++, this actually is going to be first on the list along with DSD. So one thing here. I'm still evaluating very slowly this Baofeng Delta Mic 32 UV. I primarily bought it because of the price point. It's unlocked on VHF, UHF, analog and digital, but it supports encryption. The encryption on this, depending on what firmware you have, people say it doesn't work with the encryption, the AES 256-bit encryption on Motorola, or they'll say, well, the encryption is broken because they're using fixed initialization vectors, or they fixed it, but it only has a small set of pseudo-random initialization vectors to make sure the encryption is good. Well, I hate the internet with a passion. I would happily give up the internet if I can go back and, like Uncle Rico, not live in 1982 and go to state, but I would happily go back to 1998, 99, even the early 2000s. In fact, I would go back to pre-iPhone introduction. I would go back to the edge of 2007 if I could, because I believe it was the right mix of internet for value while still having mental health, still people going outside, in-person interactions. The reason why I bring it up is because the internet cannot agree on the state of this encryption. I don't trust ChatGPT because it is based on all the BS lies that are out there and makes up stuff when it doesn't know because it wants to give you an answer. So I want to say actually this thing called DSD. It's a digital sound decoder. Since I already support the SDRs, the little dongles I showed you guys, it's going to allow me to capture and monitor the digital traffic on the DMR side of this radio. And I'm going to be able to test and with my own eyes verify what the state of encryption is with these Motorola's. So I think this is likely coming next. It's an area that I'm very interested in. So in terms of EmComm tools, DSD is coming next. So if you see a bunch of Baofeng videos, don't subscribe and cancel. I really want to understand for myself, and I want to take people with me through this. For the very technical details, I'll cover it more and buy me a coffee. But for the high level, hey, this is the state of the state. That'll be all public YouTube stuff. Gnostic Papa said, okay, you meant contribute writing code or something. Don't know what he meant there. Okay, and then there'll be some updates to ET Predict and ET Aircraft. ET Predict, I want to introduce the ability to bring in the Tech Prepper antennas. And it's not even so much the Tech Prepper antennas. The one problem I have with the Voice of America capture and analysis program is that it was designed for RF engineers, mostly in the AM commercial broadcast space, to figure out if we set up this station with these characteristics, what type of market reach do we have? Okay. And it takes a bunch of different antenna models. And I get it, everybody's different. The offline HF prediction that I'm doing is not going to be set in stone. It's a general framework to say, I want to talk to my buddy locally, Brian, or I want to talk to my buddy Jason across the country. Within reasonable power levels, within our distances, within our mode, the only thing that really changes is your antenna. And it is an important factor, but I don't want to go crazy because I don't want to build the antenna. For example, my neighbor, Paul, W7CQQ, this guy's got 150K into his freaking shack. He likes to collect stations or collect contacts and work all the countries and do that stuff. I'm not going to model and build into my offline predictions thing. I want to cater to the guy that is doing a wire antenna. And I'm really only going to model two antennas, maybe two antennas, a traditional dipole antenna, single bander, and a traditional like end-fed half wave that might be multi-band. Okay. And there's only going to be two heights. I'm going to call it tactical and ham nerd. Ham nerd is you are textbook amateur radio operator and you want to do DX, distance communication, and literature suggests your antenna needs to be half a wavelength above ground. So if you're on 40 meters, that dipole needs to be at 20 meters or 66 feet up in the air for you guys in the US. If you're like me, I like the tactical operation. And by tactical, it means I'm going out with purpose. I'm going into a austere environment where it's 118 degrees, and I want to deploy my end-fed half wave for regional communication 10 feet off the ground. So that's it. So the ET Predict tool is going to be based around 4 options. It's 2 antennas that are easily accessible to everybody, low barrier to entry, and the 2 deployment heights. That is it. If you want more than that, then EmComm tool is also not for you for this area prediction. This is all for the field operator in mind. Brian says, oh, let's see here. Chris has got a lot of questions. Okay. Oh, big thank you. So this is the end of the presentation. If you guys want to hang out for a little bit more, I've got some behind the scenes details I can fly through maybe in 20 minutes, but I have to give a shout out where credit is due. And if I'm missing anyone, please let me know. So again, I have no ability to write all the software. I can't write the Linux operating system from scratch, right? I can't unless I was Linus Torvalds in 1993. And it was a whole lot smarter. I can't write JSA call. I could not have written Direwolf or Pat. So big shout out to Jordan for writing JSA call and the work that was done before him on FT8. Big shout out to John for his work on Direwolf. This is the packet modem that I use for all of the packet work. Big thanks to Martin for the work on WinLink. Andrew for his work on Yak, the APRS client. David for FL Digi. Yari for inspiring me to build an offline version of the VoaCap application, Linux community, and more than anything, you guys on Buy Me a Coffee. So if you guys don't want nerd details, let me know. But I put some bonus slides in for the people. Let me see how many slides I have here. And I can just tear through this. Yeah, there's only 5 slides. And I did do this for the Buy Me a Coffee guys on a nerd hour. So if you guys are not into the nerd stuff and don't have 20 minutes, thank you so much for the support. Really appreciate you guys. Key takeaways are think appliance, think simple to use, think field operator, think field expediency, and go check out community.emcommtools.com and wait till the Thanksgiving notification. I will post when that's ready. So the architecture for R5 EmComm tools and everything that's coming is this idea of everything old is new again. And it's this idea of client server. Okay. So back in the 90s, when computers were slower, you had this idea of a server. So if you were in an office, you likely had an actual closet with a physical computer, maybe multiples, and you would have applications that would run on individual people's computer that would connect to that server for maybe your customer relationship management system. Well, the cloud also kind of is this architecture where the client is our web browser and the server is just about any internet site you go to, google.com. I don't know if people use MSN, youtube.com, whatever. Well, I'm using this for all of the applications, but the difference is the client server architecture is running on your computer. Everything, both the client and the server, run on your machine. So here's the example. So the apps that I showed you will talk to a server. I call it the ET API. It's the Geo API. It's the thing that provides the geolocation services. So again, the point here is both client and server run standalone. No internet required. They both run and they talk to local sets of data, or they get the data over radio. So the aircraft application is an example of a client application, and it talks to the ET API. Again, it's something that runs in the background when you log in or when the computer starts up. It starts up. It's the thing that will talk to two things. So in the case of the ET aircraft API is one, but it also talked to a program called Dump 1090. In fact, I got to send a thank you to the creator of Dump 1090. He's missing. So Dump 1090 is a program that talks to your SDR, and it's the one that is decoding the signals that are heard from the aircraft. And then there's another service called MBTAL server, which I did not write, but I did create all of the service code to start that up. I created all of the maps myself. So ET aircraft as an application talks to multiple servers. It talks to my EmComm tools API. It talks to the thing that is actually decoding the radio signals, and it's also talking to the offline map server. This one got me. KJ7, Zim, Zach, bring on the nerdy. Yep. So the generalized architecture now applies to every application. So in that roadmap where I talked about release 6, R6, R7, and R8, and I talked about ET Mail, ET APRS, ET JSA, ET Messenger, all of that. All of those applications are going to be the idea of an app, and they'll be talking to an API or a server that runs on the machine. Okay. Oh, let me kill that. So how is this built? And I'll tell you guys, I am not a front-end developer. So the visual stuff you see on screen, that is not my wheelhouse whatsoever. In fact, it's so much not my wheelhouse, I refuse to put it on my resume. So I am just dangerous enough to build the apps. So the ET Predict, the graphical application, the ET aircraft, I'm about as retarded as you can be. Sorry for using that word if you're sensitive to it. I'm not an expert in that area by any means, but I have a different view of how I build those applications. So I'm using internet technology to make it modern, but internet technology that does not require the internet. So the language I'm using is JavaScript. The framework I'm using is React. I like the philosophy of the React framework and how it renders things on the page. And my big gripe with the front-end developer scenes, the front-end devs or the web devs, they call them, is that every 6 months, they change and rewrite everything. Again, that is not my style. React does everything I need to do it. It lets me have touch. It makes the display look good. When those guys come into my circle and say, oh, your application is crap because you didn't run it in the new version of like XYZ, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I want stable. I like the older software. Again, since this is not intended for the internet, we can put the security concerns aside. Number 2, I'm not a front-end engineer. I'm not a UI, a user interface designer. I'm not a UX designer, a user experience designer. So Adobe React Spectrum, almost nobody is using it outside of Adobe, but Adobe has put incredible amounts of work to make this work for all of their applications. So I got for free all of the usability studies, the ability for the application to expand and contract, and it just works, and it's simple. It's easy for me to develop. So a lot of the technologies I pick are not only easy for the user, they're easy for me to develop, and they're easy for me to maintain. So ease of use is core. Pigeon maps, all of the mapping. Again, I'm not using I think it's a Leaflet is the map system. It has plugins and all kinds of craziness. Well, actually, I got to give credit to the Pigeon guy now that I forget or remember Pigeon. Pigeon creds. His big thing was he just wanted to have a map component that didn't have any dependencies. There was no reliance on anything else. So I took it and it works great. Is it being actively maintained? No, but it does everything I need to render an OpenStreetMap map, and it has everything I need to drop the pins, right? Simple. Don't have to touch it. Haven't touched it since the EmComm Tools R2 days back in 2022. And then I'm using Electron to package it up. And every application is going to follow the same recipe. So on the back end, I'm using Java 11 and something called Spring Boot. Again, most people don't use these applications. And the reason for it is that Java's been around for a while. It's what we used in the corporate world, and it's not going to die. It's like the COBOL of it's like the next COBOL. So if I ever wanted to go back, I could make buco bucks probably into my 70s working on Java applications for the financial industry, 40 years from now. And then I'm using a framework called Spring Boot. And I like it because you can create something called an Uber jar. So it packages everything. So it's just one file called ET API that has everything. I could just copy it and move it from system to system, and it works. And then under the hood, for simplicity, even though I am a search engineer by trade, that really is my thing. I'm not using a full search engine. I'm using a low-level Java information retrieval library, an IR library called Lucene, and it does what I need for making small indexes of the FCC database. It has capabilities for me to do geodistance search. So, for example, here's a cool use case that will be coming when I do ETJS8. Let's say that I'm doing ET. This one's actually pretty wild. So this is the stuff that wakes me up every night that causes me to write prolifically stacks of notebooks every month. So for those of you who are into JS8, you have the ability, in fact, let's do a demo. Let's do a demo real quick. Oh yeah, I unplugged close terminal. Okay, so we're on the station behind me. So let's say that we launch, JS8 call is launched. I'm going to clear my screen. One reason why I love JS8 call is for what we call poor man's HF propagation. So if I, for example, I don't want to do a heartbeat. I actually want the guys in my circle to get back to me. No, let's do a heartbeat. This is going to take too long. We'll do a heartbeat. It only takes 15 seconds. So I'm going to put out a request to everybody in the world that can hear my signal with something called a heartbeat. It's only going to take like 10 seconds. So while that's going, data should be coming back. I'm also going to do an off-the-rails demo. My buddy Brian says I shouldn't do this, but we are going to launch the original version of EmComm tools. Again, live demo. We'll do offline, personal, workspace, EmComm tools API. So on the machine I'm connected to right now, I'm going to connect to JS8 call. And it looks like only 3 stations got back to me, KK7 UMM. These guys all look local to me based on the region numbers. So with that up and running, this feature is going to be coming in R6. And I don't know if I'm going to put it in ET predict or ET JS8 call. I've got, I'm connecting to it locally. This was part of the app that I had never released years ago. You could select your radio, do a bunch of other cool stuff, but it's written using the same framework. Let's say now I go to the tactical map. So kind of similar, right? I'm here. I can do show JS8 call stations. And let me switch the map here. Let's go OpenStreetMap. We'll go online for this one here. So you can see right now, I can see where my signal is going, and we're pretty much getting NVIS. So it's using the behind the tool, that ET API, that offline FCC database that I wrote. It saw that, what was his call sign? KB7WB. He's down here, right? KB7WB. It did a local lookup on my machine without the internet, looked up his call sign. Then it did, it geocoded it. So it dropped its pin here. So we know he's up in Washington. Get his signal report, last heard, blah, 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 city and state. Okay. And then I can do the next, and I can see here that that's Lauren, KK7 UMM. And if you scroll down, he's 6.23 miles from me. We've got this station in California that is 311, and that happens to be Scott. Now imagine in this world where I have a search index, I'm going to index, and I have done this, is it in this build? There used to be an option here to show WinLink stations. So I told you guys, if you hung with me from the beginning, that sorting WinLink stations by proximity to you is only valuable for line of sight communication, VHF, UHF, packet, right? For HF, for these distances, it doesn't make sense. So imagine with the same technology coming in R6, I could click here or even here. I could do a right click and I do find nearby WinLink stations. And the reason why that is powerful is offline, I know I'm propagating here. Tonight, when I do this, if I were to jump, for example, let's jump to 20 meters. Let's do that test because it looks like band conditions are good. Let's jump over to 20 meters, which is going to have different propagation characteristics. And I'll do another heartbeat. And we're going to see how the propagation changes as we change frequencies. One of the things I'm going to cover in my field training company is bringing people out, and I'm going to do an HF for dummies. There are certain rules of thumb that we know as operators that the general public isn't accustomed to, of what time of day, which band can I expect to get into different parts of the country or the world. So right now, not great. We've got 2 stations coming back to me on 20 meters, but we can see these guys are farther away. So now if I go back to my live demo, we'll hide these stations. It'll re-ask. We can see now that Christopher is out in Colorado. And then we've got W5 YPZ. So right now on 20 meters, I'm propagating closer, not quite the Midwest, but trending there. So someone is asking, is this separate from Whisper? Yeah, so Whisper could be used for something like this. Whisper is another technology that I believe is part of the FT8 package, which is kind of the parent mode of FT8. But what you're seeing here is kind of the power in the platform where all of these things start to be force multipliers, right? I couldn't build the map till I had an offline map engine, right? I couldn't look up the call signs till I had the offline database. So now that we have these capabilities, I want to solve problems. I want to go in the field. In fact, I wanted to do the video this week, but I feel weird taking this version, EmComm Tools R2, putting it on just my version of R5. So I have both versions of the application. And what I kind of want to demonstrate to people is, okay, we go in the field, I do my low to the ground 40-meter deployment. What does that mean in terms of your reach? But it's very easy for people to see, 40 meters at, 8:52 local time, 15:52 Zulu or UTC. Yeah, regional propagation is possible. But then jumping to 20 meters, we see this. But then taking it one step farther. So Tim, N9SAB, him and I are working on another antenna. And I want to be able to throw up I haven't done it in a long time, but go out in the field and deploy my carbon fiber mast and show how the 20-meter flat topper, because we can't get NVIS on 20 meters, how that would change how you propagate if we increase it to like 30 feet. And I can do that by deploying 2 antennas, the flat topper, then in another area close by, maybe like a wavelength apart, do a sloper off of the mast, and then connect the antenna to each system and do a quick heartbeat and show it on the map. And I think that'll help people click on HF propagation and have it be less mysterious. When you're looking at JSA call, a lot of times, if you know what you're doing and you have the map like I have behind me there, where you see call signs, for example, at least each of these call signs line up. The reason why I changed my call sign from KT1 RUN, my original call, to KT7 RUN was because I was confusing the heck out of people. People were looking at my one call sign, which maps to a different region. And they said, yeah, technically you should have been 7. Why did the FCC issue that? Well, they didn't. I put in for a call sign since I'm a trail runner. So that's why. So long story short, I went off on some ADHD tangent, but bottom line is we have now all of these little, getting back to the architecture, all of these little building blocks. You can think of them as Lego blocks that are allowing me now to really rapidly build more value add software that I'm going to call practical first, real world practical. That use case of let's figure out who can hear me. JSA Call does that for me. We got the map. Okay, I want to now send a WinLink email. There's nothing wrong with me sending a WinLink email 1,500 miles out. I just don't want to go through trial and error. Can we then use these local services to find a proximity search? So it's no different than what I did for, I don't want to mention their name, the vehicle company I did, where we geodetected you when you went to the website and I populated all the inventory for you. It's the same damn thing, just applied with an offline model and a keep it simple, stupid model. So then hanging off of these services, we have some data sources. So in this case, this is the aircraft example. So the SDR is feeding this in real time. Again, no internet. The other thing that I did was I mined the FAA public data set, took only the data I need. I stuck it in that Lucene index. So when you plug in the SDR, I get the tail number from RF. I look that up in my FAA database and I show you tail number, who it's registered to, what type of registrant it is. And then we also pull in the local map server with the MB tile, the map tiles I generated for you. Same thing, ET Predict, the application does this prediction. Client server model, right? The app this time is ET Predict. The server is the ET API, along with the map server, same map server. It's using the FCC export from 11/12 of this month. I merged that with the GeoNames public data. GeoNames in the US is the 54,000 zip codes on file with a representative zip code. I link the GeoNames coordinates to the FCC zip code you have on file. And then I run the ET vocab prediction engine behind the scene. This is something I failed to mention. Here's some cool stuff. So earlier in R5, R5, I had developed this program called ET vocab. And the way it works is you type in on the command line --RX, and let's say the receiving call sign is going to be my buddy William, KI4, I don't know, HDU. It does the same reverse lookup. I could also give it a grid or a lat long for transmitting side. It already knows about me. If I have onboard GPS, you don't have to do the TX. Call, grid, or lat long, but you can. It'll automatically, if these three are absent, it will use the GPS to look at my location. If that's not available, it uses the grid square you entered early on. And then I could put the power. So let me do power. I'm not going to put all the arguments here. And the mode, right? And let's say that I want to talk to them on JS8. And it supports, these different modes. Well, it would spit out, RX call. So this was the first iteration of this thing. So you can see here, I've showed this a few times before. Let me make this bigger. And I did not write this textual output format. This code is called rel.pl. This is by Yari, the guy who developed vocap.com HF. In 2016, he developed this little script that takes the output of a prediction and formats it. I just run it. So I've been using this for the last year, and we can see a few things here. We can see that William is 1,610 miles from me at a bearing of 77 degrees. We see now that it is 15:15 UTC. Their time is offset, so I think it's this one right here is the appropriate one. And we can see that our A's are on 17 meter and 20 meter for right now. So this tool and the actual thing that it generates, quick tangent here. It produces a full-on, I'm talking balls to the wall, ham nerd output file called vocap. I actually had to write a Fortran parser. For those of you guys who remember Fortran, it wasn't difficult, just kind of annoying. And my custom tool, the graphical tool that we've talked about, has to read all of this. I had to write a line-oriented, column-oriented parser that will read and discard all of this information. What this is on the hour-by-hour basis. This is the first column has the frequencies. This is the maximum usable frequency. That was fun trying to find. I had to read a fairly lengthy document from Rockwell Collins from 2001, 177 pages. These are all the frequencies that are listed. Under it is the signal or the dB measurement of the signal strength. Below each one of those, we actually have the reliability score. So what percentage, 0 to 100, of you making that contact? And it goes hour by hour. So I had to read that. So this utility, the ET vocap utility, which is still there, does the hard part of generating the massive Fortran card that has 10 lines or so on how to put in the circuit information, the latitude and longitude of both locations, the power, the mode, the reliability, and then spits this out. But now, ET Predict, I don't have the launcher icon on this build. All you do, go here, KD7, was it KD4? Oh, shoot, I forgot his call sign. KI4 HDU. KI4 HDU. Oh, that's an R. It makes it more accessible, right? But now we're not even looking at that. So now if we want to do the prediction, we basically get that same setup there that, okay, on GSA call, you want to be here. If not, later. And it starts to go at that rolling 1700 UTC window. And again, there's a little difference in the numbers. I don't know if I was reading that output quite right, but it's the same output. The reason for it is that I don't know why Yari started the UTC hour at 01. This should technically be 00, and at the end here should be 23. I read it the way that it's designed to be interpreted. So let's see here. So anyways, that's how all of that freaking sausage is made. And I can't believe we still have 70 people with me still. A few more things. Let's see what I had in the presentation. Oh, no, that's it, guys. So long story short, we're finally done. That is my entire presentation. I only have 90 minutes. So I went over by a full hour, but we went down all kinds of deep dives. Okay, Chris is asking me a question here. Chris, you have a lot of questions, man. Sorry, I don't have a moderator, but so hence why you don't support ARM. Well, it's a different architecture, right? There's a different build of Ubuntu, right? And the packages are different for ARM, and not everything is supported on ARM. So that's reason number one why Intel. Fortran, I'm not using Fortran. I wrote my own Fortran parser in Java, at least to parse that Fortran style output. It's not a Fortran interpreter. I'm not running Fortran code. So again, Chris, I'm not going to get into debate. EmComm tools will never support any other platform. And I really need everybody that's hearing this message. The only reason I'm able to do the amount of stuff you're seeing, the customization of Linux, the low-level plug-and-play support, the overriding of broken things in the kernel, in the operating system, the settings that are appropriate for the field operator, which are not out of the box, installing everybody else's application, doing templates with sensible configuration, doing all of that rewriting. The second you go to another CPU architecture, you double that work. I would stop this work. So, and the reason why I don't want ARM is that the Raspberry Pi is not suited for the field. You have to remember everything I'm doing is not for the amateur radio community. It is for the off-grid operator that wants to use gear that will not fail. These Panasonic ToughBads and ToughBooks, barring some weird issue, a lot of my units have 14,000 hours of operation pulled from General Motors, pulled from people in the oil industry, and they're still working secondhand. The Raspberry Pi is the farthest thing from uh, a ruggedized field-worthy device. All the work I'm doing is around the field. The reason why the display doesn't have 1,000 options is that I'm doing it based on the lowest common denominator, and that is a 17-inch tablet. And here, you know what? I need to prove this point here. Shoot, and I don't have a map installed here, but a good example, what am I running here? Okay. I'm going to have to connect a radio again, guys. Sorry about this. But let me explain why I'm so opinionated. I'm not mad. It's just that this question comes up all the time. And I just need to be very transparent and clear because I am asking support. And the support is to allow me to do these things and continue with the vision. So we're going to do ET mode. And I'm going to pick... We're going to do APRS. And I did not load a map, so my apologies. This is a... Or did I? This build might have it. No, I haven't loaded the map. So could you imagine using the APRS client on a 7-inch display where you have to go into all of these menus? I mean, I've done it, right? And you want to look at like raw messages. In some cases, you don't have a keyboard and you have more messages here. I'm not targeting the traditional amateur radio operator that's operating in the shack that's got a giant screen. I'm targeting the EmComm operator. And the reason why I did the build of that story, right? The reason why I spent so much time, and I'm hoping my buddy Brian can help me share this message with other people. But, you know, for those of you guys who missed the beginning, the reason why I have these tenets of what EmComm Tools is and why I shared my background and why I showed you this style of operation, right? With the Raspberry Pi and the ARM tablet with the almost impossible to use tiny text here and this gear is that it's not compatible with emergency communication. The only reason EmComm Tools exist is for emergency communication. And it's going to be in scenarios where you're not at a house with your giant big screen TV. So, you know, this is a perfect example. This picture at the end here with the pup is why I did it. I can take this 7-inch notebook and this 2-pound transceiver and a little bit of wire, and I open myself up to grid down communication globally. All I need to make sure is that that tablet works. And since that tablet has 14,000 hours, I know it's going to work. You know, the question will be out how long the TX500 MP will be out. But over the last 4 years, I have taken in a man pack, sealed up on max power for digital mode, the 818. It has lasted every summer for 5 years, every operation. And it just works. So again, when I say no to other distributions, no to other platforms, no to some features, it's because this has a very specific role and audience. The source code is out there. I mean, if you want to go out there and change things, you know, by all means do that. In fact, there are lots of forks out there, people doing that. But yeah, I just want to say it one more time. Just I'll probably cut this clip and say, hey, this is why things are the way they are. This is why not Windows and things like that. But is it Yori? Oh, finally joined Buy Me a Coffee today. Thanks for all the work. It's my pleasure. Your stuff is just too cool. Thanks, man. And it works. It's practical. Been testing RC4 with some friends now, and it's been awesome. Keep it up. Yeah, I think you're going to love R5. And like I said, R5 is now positioned us, or me, us, nicely for, I guess, my wife, dogs, R6, R7, and R8. Okay. So yeah, guys, if you want to support, again, a shameless plug, Buy Me a Coffee is the way to do it. Continue to share those videos and just get the word out there. I don't want to come across as a sellout. I am starting to sell things more, but they're all products that I designed for myself, believe in, and take out. You're never going to see me promote anything that I don't use. I have plenty of people. In fact, I had about 4 NDAs that I signed this month, and I said no to every single person that came to me. A lot of it was from the tactical community on the mesh side, and a lot of it just wasn't practical and not for me. And yeah, I probably could not go back to work doing that, and I just refuse to. I just want to focus on building a brand and a reputation where I can fumble for my words, my uhs and my ums. I can do 1 or 2 takes, and I can share with you the journey, share with you the experience, and just be open and transparent with all the goals. So that's what you're going to get. If it turns out that it's not a viable option, I tried my best to do something that was true to myself. So I really am blessed that I have each and every one of you. Anyways, guys, it's almost 3 hours. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys jumping in. I'm the Tech Prepper. Be strong, be safe, and be prepared.